Okay. You want to see if you can tell if they're lying to you? Go ahead and roll. Sorry, you missed by 3. Yeah, you think they're telling the truth.
This is Sean.
And this is Navi.
And together we're a couple of Drakes, the creators of Court of Blades and Dead Bell.
When we're not writing games, we're listening to Table Talk. Toppy Talk?
Don't try that again?
When we're not writing games, we're listening to Tabletop Talk.
Welcome to Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars. Your host, Craig Shipman.
Howdy, ENNIE judges. I'm Craig Shipman, the person behind the content at Third Floor Wars. My podcast, Tabletop Talk, is where I interview creatives and designers in the tabletop gaming space. What makes my show different than all the other interview shows out there? Well, I do interview designers like Robin D. Laws, John Harper, Ed Greenwood, Robert Schwalb, and Rod Edwards. That isn't what makes my show unique. I bring big and small creators on the show, and we focus on uncovering their creative process. I talk with some of the biggest names in the industry, but I also try to get small indie creators on as well. Most shows focus on what they make. I focus on why they make these games and how they make these games. My interviews are long form and can be up to 2 hours long. I strive to create conversations about their inspirations, history, personalities, methodology, and drive. I want to understand the people behind these games. Now, I struggle to find a clip that captures the show, as each episode is so unique because of the guest and the path that we take together in our conversation. But I decided on this 10-minute clip with Ray Najati, the maker of Apocalypse Keys, which recently closed a successful Kickstarter. This clip showcases what makes my show different. I hope it inspires you to look through my catalog of almost 200 episodes to find creators you'd like to learn about and learn from. Most of all, thank you for the work it takes to be a judge. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I hope you enjoy this clip.
One of the challenges of Apocalypse Keys is when a lot of people hear urban fantasy, mystery, Hellboy inspired. And once again, like coming from that, perspective and who gets to say what is true. So a lot of, I'm just gonna be honest, a lot of cis dudes were like, so I'm expecting Urban Shadows. I'm expecting Monster of the Week. Why are these monsters so powerful and why are they so emotional? Why are relationships important to them? Like a lot of the feedback I got from the open play test was, it doesn't make sense that I'm a powerful monster, but relationships matter to me. They shouldn't at this point because I'm powerful and a monster.
That's fascinating. So now here's the question I would have about that is, you've got a choice to make as a designer, right? One choice is to take that feedback and go, I need to set the expectations better and I need to make it clearer, or, and I'm going to just say it, or fuck
right.
them.
Right. Yeah.
And so how do you sort through that when you get feedback like that? Not just that specifically, but in general, right?
Yeah. I think like Apocalypse Keys was like the biggest example, because like for the rest of my games, so within the indie itch.io designer space that I am in, right, on Twitter and stuff, a lot of us are ridiculously queer. Like a lot of us are just like, I remember
I'm not Costco queer. We're talking like craft brewing queer.
That is so unfortunately true. I have to say that.
Oh, that's great.
I remember when like so Sean and I met through Balik and Apocalypse Keys, but we really, especially because like Sean has really been there for me working through Apocalypse Keys. We used to like meet every week, talk for hours about the design and go over stuff. And so I think at one point I told Sean, I think like I realized I've been with Matthew, my husband, partner. I was like, I've been with Matthew for like almost 20 years, more than 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. And so, I'm very lucky. And I was like, but I think I'm poly. Like I've been talking to Matthew about it. And Sean was like, yeah. And he was like, I don't know that many indie designers who aren't poly. I'm going to tell you right now. And I was
what
like,
took you so long, Ray?
That has been the general reaction. When I tell people I'm poly, they're like, oh yeah, you didn't know? I was like, what? Like people were joking about Apocalypse Keys, the Bond questions. They're like, oh, this is just Ray's like polycule simulator game, right? I was like, what?
Isn't that funny? God, that's incredible.
Yeah, but yeah.
All right, I got to bring us back to Oathbreaker. So stay with me, Ray.
Yes.
So,
oh wait,
here's
sorry,
the thing.
I actually didn't answer the question about like what to do with the feedback.
We started it right, and that's where I want to go. So you play Mage, and you hear the myth of Mage, which is a bunch of boo-ha, right? And but it sounds to me like the setting concept was attractive to you. So am I accurate in saying that it was the theme and the genre and the feeling that drew you into it first?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So when do you get the ridiculous idea of using the belonging outside of belonging system? Because I got to be honest with you, the first time I saw Oathbreakers, I'm reading the sentences, I'm like going, yeah. And then that last sentence slapped me in the face because that was the last thing I would have expected. So I guess I want to start with, when does that come into play? Or did it start with something else? Or did you know from the beginning you were going to use that very unique way of playing a game?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I have this ridiculous habit and Sean and other people really laugh at me about this. I have this ridiculous habit where if I'm trying to figure out a design challenge within a system, because I really love studying systems and getting the hang of them and iterating on them. If I'm trying to figure out a challenge in a system, I will just, instead of making huge dramatic changes within the game, I just create a new game that uses like an iteration on that. So with Oathbreakers, number one, I came across Sam Zimmerman's Revolution, which is a belonging inside belonging game that takes place during the French Revolution, right? And it uses that system, but with tarot cards. And so when we play tested it, I was like, whoa, my mind was blown, right? I was like, because you had to, so the tarot cards replaced the tokens, but then if you wanted to do specific moves, you would have to have those tarot cards. You would have to have a swords card or a wands card or a major, or if you had a major arcana, then you could do any of those moves. It was so smart. It was so simple, but it was so fascinating. And I told Sam, ever since we played like Revolution, I have been unable to like stop thinking about that mechanic. Can I please borrow it and use it? And then so, because this was around the time I was playing Changeling and I was getting the idea for the game, so I put that in. And then but like buy-in, what I was struggling with at the time, which is it was the second BOB game that I worked on. What I was struggling with at the time was, what do regular moves do? And this is like a conversation a lot of designers within the Twitter space were like passionately talking about on Twitter. So it's hard to have a
as opposed to rationally talking about it on Twitter.
It's so hard to have a nuanced conversation on Twitter. We were really trying, but all it takes is a bad day and reading someone's tweet wrong, so and taking things very personally. So, but basically I saw what like Riley Rethal was doing, like just removing regular moves completely. And I was like, would that still work? And I was like, instead of being drastic with like buying and removing the regular moves, I'm like, I'm going to use Oathbreakers, and then I'm going to put on this like tarot thing from Sam and the no regular moves from Riley. I'm going to put it with my inspiration from Changeling, and then it's going to be Oathbreakers was the idea. And that's what I really just enjoy experimenting with mechanics and shifting and pulling and pushing and breaking. Like that's what it helps me better understand what is the internal core elements of a system, what really matters and doesn't matter.
And by Frankensteining them together, it exposes that in each other game. Is that what you're? Okay.
Yeah. Because there are times when I've broken things to the point where like, oh, this isn't working anymore. This isn't fun. Like this isn't. Like I have this like BOB magical girl game that I really like. Actually, every time I make a magical girl game, it just breaks. Like that's like, I'm like so sad about that. But Girl by Moonlight exists, so that's okay. But basically, yeah. It's I love doing that so much. It's one of the things I love so much.
Now, did you have all of those puzzle pieces together before someone played it? or is that something that came through iteration?
Ooh, so what I like to do when I play test the game is I like to pretend the game is as complete as possible from the player side. So they don't, and I do this because, and this is really like, I think this is just a personal choice. I've seen other people enjoy playtesting while the game is still like basically in shambles and the players can.
Yeah, they race to the table.
Yeah. And that's fine, right? I think that's, but for me as a designer, when I playtest, I like as much as possible if I can pretend it's a complete game, and it feels like a complete game because I find a lot of that informs the play experience. So I want to give a really quick example in that I created a trophy dark game called Brinkwood. Well, right now it's called In the Face of Our Despair, but we're going to shorten it down to Brinkwood Despair. Because I'm very dramatic. I have a lot of dramatic titles. And so the thing is, the Trophy Dark system and the Trophy Dark game, it was originally from Cthulhu Dark, and they tweaked it. Very cool stuff, very lovely core resolution mechanic. The interesting thing is, in Trophy Dark, which I've played and run quite a few times, people were hesitant to use the ruin mechanic, right? Because they were,
which is a shame because it's a huge part. I mean, it's a huge core of the game.
It's a huge part of the game, right? It's so important and it's so much fun. But people are like, "Oh no, I don't want to." And so I thought maybe. So at the time, I thought, well, this is just a part of how the mechanic works, right?